Giving a video the title "Which reviewers should I let in to review my Fringe show" might sound bizarre to some people watching this. When I first took a show to the Edinburgh Fringe around the year 2000, there was hardly anybody I knew who was staging a show that would even ask that question, and you were just glad of any reviewers that came in to see your show. And occasionally there'd be a mystery because somebody seemed to have been in taking notes and nobody knew which reviewing publication that was from. And there clearly weren't lots and lots of blogs around that time. There were some little paper magazines, and we did have the beginnings of the internet even then, of course. There were online reviews, but the lanyard that you wore that gave you official press accreditation had a unique number on it. Press accreditation is still quite careful, but in those days it was a bit more careful, just in terms of you could ask to see somebody's number before you released a ticket. Now it's a different form of ID, and there are people without press accreditation who are influential on TikTok that are still out there as reviewers and known by members of the public, known by companies. They may have been in to review your show before, but certainly in those earlier days you just were glad to get reviewers in. Even then the Fringe was at scale, and you didn't feel mostly that you had a say who came in. I think there were one or two shows that were tighter in terms of control of who came in, but even then that couldn't stop somebody buying a ticket, and reviewers still do that. They buy tickets, come in and review your show whether you like it or not. So there is a question about, can you ever now refuse somebody to come in? And the answer is no, not if they bought a ticket. That's their right. But that is still, I would say, the big minority. Maybe it's growing, but people are buying tickets to come in and writing their reviews. And some blogs and some YouTubers are sponsored, so they can have a little bit of budget to do that anyway, and some can afford it. But still, the vast majority of reviewing is from publications that are still very established. And so the newspapers that still review, though I would say in much less numbers from the old days in terms of the concentration of reviewers, in terms of the numbers, is they don't have the budgets. They send reviewers up. There are obviously reviewers based in Edinburgh, but the team sizes are a bit smaller. Though there are lots and lots of online publications, of course, who also come in to review. And you might have had the experience of having had a reviewer in and the review never went up. And you kind of know who they are because that ticket was booked under their name. Or you can call the publication, email the publication, and find out why the reviewer didn't come in. The other one, which is also where this particular video starts, is I know several theatre producers, performers who had a reviewer in who clearly didn't get their show, or wrote something quite offensive, or clearly had written a review that seemed to be on their case and had been in before, and seems to just constantly criticise that performer or that company. And they've absolutely specified to press offices, I do not want that reviewer in, or I do not want that publication in, because the price is too high in terms of reputation, and they don't feel they have a fair chance of getting a good review. Or it could be that they've identified that the reviewer has a conflict of interest. They worked with them before, maybe they fell out, or maybe they just don't think that reviewer is going to be objective. So one decision that you can make, though you can't stop that person buying a ticket to come in, is to specify to your press office very clearly who or what publication you don't want into your show. And you might then be contacted by that publication or not, probably not. But that gives you agency, that certainly gives you control over minimising the risk of an unfair review. And unfair can mean that they don't know what they're looking at, or that they have a bias against you, or that there's a very little chance of a review coming out at all because that reviewer seems to get lots of tickets and doesn't deliver. It may also be that what you decide to do, and this has been there for a while, excuse noises in the background, this is the usual Pavilion Gardens Cafe in Brighton, waking up in the morning, is to decide days on which you do not want reviewers in, and that's particularly preview nights for people to come and see work and celebrate the fact that the work's there. And you might not want reviews on preview nights, and you would just simply specify that and specify the earliest review date that reviewers are welcome in. I think it's gone kind of out of being the norm now about having press nights. That still happens in London for sure, but I'd say up in Edinburgh reviewers have very tight schedules. Some are literally scheduled up. They're trying to find dates later in the run, which is not ideal for you. But if you want their review, you can't just say you can only come in on a press night. And we're certainly getting, they're quite strange emails really, going, this is the press night, but feel free to come any other night. But I guess they're still looking to meet the press, maybe before or after, give them some more information, maybe do a photo call. And press nights can be celebratory. They can mark the beginning of a show, a premiere. But sometimes they're specifically located a few days after previews. Now the reason it can be a real risk to have reviewers in on preview nights is that, particularly in Edinburgh, there are a lot of pop-up venues, there's a lot of noise and chaos, and it can take a few days to settle, to land properly. It's quite hard to hit the ground running, though some shows allow, and comedians for example, allow reviewers in from day one. Some groups are just touring through, know how to set their show up, and they want reviews in as early as possible. But it's a risk for you if you really are going to have reviewers in, and they will review the show they see, not the ideal version of the show. And so they're going to say the lighting, there was noise bleed, we couldn't hear them, because you haven't got used to your venue properly. And it's almost like your first couple of shows, a bit like a long tech run, because you don't get much time in a lot of venues to have a proper tech run or rehearsal. So you can specify when a little bit too, but also in terms of who you want in. I know performers that don't want any reviewers in. That might sound strange. Some might let reviewers in right late in the run, but for them it's about the work. For them, they don't feel they have something to prove. They might already have an audience that's following them. They aren't that bothered about audience, as I say, because it's about the work. They don't mind a small audience. They're there for very different reasons to just commercial success. Ultimately though, it comes down to you really dialoguing well with your press office, so that you're not ignored by them. And you might have signed deals where you don't get to specify who comes in, and that you've got very little agency. Though what you can do is still try and influence that if you're concerned that particular reviewer coming in isn't going to give you a fair review. Then there's just the issue of sheer numbers and the cost of free tickets, which is where, beyond press accreditation, but even with press accreditation, do you really want to give away 20 tickets? From the reviewer's point of view, they work hard for their review. They don't see it as a free ticket. They just see it as a means for a review to get written. And certainly if they're not paid, they're worth a lot more than the price of a ticket. They're going to spend a couple of hours writing a review. But by the time you're getting contacted by every possible blogger, influencer, people just with their own journey up to Edinburgh to see some stuff, and they're going to write some reviews up, or maybe record them on TikTok, record them on YouTube, record them on Instagram. Some of them might be one-line reviews, some of them might be, they used to be called tweeted reviews. Do you want to give a free ticket away? Do you want a review that's going to have just one line summarising it? For you, that might be an advantage in some cases, particularly if the one line and the 5-star review can go straight out on social media. I'd say that's very much if you feel aligned to micro blogging, to one-line reviews. But if you don't, you can also specify you don't want that kind of review in. You might take a punt on that a bit later in your run, but you might not want the first review that you get to be 1 or 2 lines and a star rating, and you might not be getting a more written up review for a few days, and that can be the risk there too. So you can risk manage. You can actually say, I only want these publications in on the first week, for example. You might say, and you can list who can come in, and if the marketing team or the press office of a particular venue, or you get emailed directly, you can say reviews are available from week 2 or week 3. Some reviewers might be quite indignant about that, and once again you might be watching this and thinking, what? Shouldn't you just let everybody in? And that's the other option too. When you answer the question or ask the question, who should I let in? Who should I allow to come and see my shows? A lot of people don't even think about it. They've got other things to think about. They see this as a kind of even playing field. Let anybody come in. I don't really need to know in advance who they are. This is what this is about. I'd like as many reviews from whoever as I like. And I certainly see some people at ease with that. They're somehow emotionally ready for that. But for others, you could end up garnering 4 or 5 reviews from people you've never heard of, saying very unreliable things about your show, or just literally getting them into a soundbite. But you do have agency, you do have control, and the first thing to do is to agree what the ground rules are with your press office, with your PR, and let's be clear, ultimately you've brought the work, and you should have control about who critiques it.